This is Janelle and Parker. Janelle went to college with Brent at George Fox University, and they graduated in the same class with the honors program. Growing up in coastal California, Janelle grew up Presbyterian, but became attracted to Orthodoxy in college and got chrismated at the end of her junior year. When her family moved to Dallas, Texas, she followed them after graduation and began attending St. Seraphim Cathedral. St. Seraphim Cathedral is where a fairly well-known Orthodox figure online, Deacon Richard Rohlin, is a member. Deacon Rohlin is also the right-hand man of Jonathan Pageau's company Symbolic World Press, and they both share a podcast called Universal History. Deacon Rohlin is basically if Jim from The Office was Orthodox. If you follow well-known manosphere YouTuber Pearl Davis, you might remember seeing Janelle in one of her videos from May of 2026 when Pearl stood outside St. Seraphim Cathedral with a sign saying, "Should Christian women obey their husbands?" Janelle gave some pretty great answers that were clipped on Pearl's channel, and that video is linked in the description here. Deacon Rohlin's interview with Pearl later that week was handled very charitably, and I would also recommend watching both parts 1 and 2 of that interview. However, rewinding back several years, St. Seraphim Cathedral is where Janelle and Parker met, dated, and got married. Parker, with the help of the Holy Spirit and folks like Jordan Peterson, came to Christianity some years prior from more of an atheist background. He had been Orthodox for about a year or two before meeting Janelle. Join us as we hear from Janelle and Parker about their journey into the BLT.
So, anyway, yes, recap. So, this time last year, actually, Brent, did he just jump off?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get into it. He knows what we're doing. This is not his first rodeo. So about this time last year, Brent and I are like best friends. We talk all the time. We have very similar YouTube feeds and stuff. We follow a lot of content around people who, whether they had a Christian background or not, seem to be hitting some kind of like generational meaning crisis of sorts, and they turn up into Christianity one way or another. And that has tended to look more like a high church form of Christianity, not just in general, right? So we observed that in our own friend group and in ourselves while at George Fox, right? The name of our channel is Journey Through the BLT. The BLT stands for Big Liturgical 3. That would Anglicanism, Catholicism, Orthodoxy. Those seem like kind of like the main attractions on the table for most people that I've known who have gone into said traditions. So we wanted to see more content / hear more stories from people closer to our age who did this. And we just see more like stats and graphs and data, but no long form, tell me how it happened type stuff. And then we're like, wait a minute, this is all of our friends. Let's just we can talk to them. So
Idea. Yeah.
the list is honestly like endless that we know for all three. And then now that I moved to Michigan, I know a ton of Catholics out here because that's more of a Midwest cultural thing too. So there's that. And so it's become a fun way to memorialize our time in college. Most of the friends we're talking to, of course, went through the honors program. That's an added layer that absolutely had something to do with people making their various conversions. And it does seem to be like this instantiation of it does seem to be a newer thing. Obviously, Dr. Clare saw the draw to Anglicanism 25 years ago, right? This isn't, it's not new for people to, check out these things. But, in the age of the internet, YouTube, social media, aesthetics, based trad what have you, all these things we have in our lingo now. Brent and I really enjoy trying to just get these things on the ground a little bit, and out of the meme space to some degree. So
Guys, how
uh
space is.
he's alive.
This is
He is
so
here.
weird.
Wait, is he?
Hello.
Oh, hey.
All right.
It kept booting me, and then poof, I exist. I don't know. It's weird. Here we are.
Your boot to poof ratio is
Well,
2 to 1.
yes, it finally hit one on one side of that.
Yay. Also, that pillow mixed with whatever jacket you're wearing is, I like it. It's working. I don't know what it is.
Good background.
It's very like
Oh, yeah.
curtains, embroidery. Yeah, there's a thing going on there with the green and the white and the beige. I like it. It's almost like you should be in a Starbucks right now. But yeah, I just now debriefed them on like what this project is and how we got here and what we're doing.
Sweet.
So you've missed nothing so far. Uh, Brent, meet Parker. I don't know if you two
Yeah,
have met before.
I've not met
Hello.
Parker.
Pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you. Yes. I
Yes.
have I think I've only like seen you through photos, so
Yeah.
it's good to meet you, Parker.
Likewise.
Yeah, they would check out. We have an Easter thread actually pertinent to the conversion question or topic. We have a thread that we started like towards the end of college of a couple of us who used to celebrate Easter together, and now that gets a little hairy when one of us wishes Easter on different dates for them.
Yep.
But now it's turned into Gary sends photos of his Easter artichoke, and everyone else sends photos of their kids.
Yes, this is how this works.
Yeah.
Yep.
At least three. I think only three of us in that chat have kids, but we all.
Which on the topic of things we all have in common, happy George Fox graduation day.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Wait, no, that's
It is, yeah, it is currently, there are currently tons of people in Newburgh right now. It's chaos.
I thought you meant
And
graduation day, and ours is in 2 days. But you're right.
yes, ours is in 2 days,
Yeah.
but graduation is happening today.
Right.
So yeah, it's a little chaotic around here.
Commencement is happening today, right now.
Right. Parker's a couple years older than us, so he was graduating when we were in
High school.
high school or middle school or something, depending on.
I'm Unk.
Yeah, he's Unk. Unk for sure.
Oh my gosh. And then he just got made further unk by using the term.
There you go.
Yeah, he asked if that meant he was chopped.
Oh man. Oh gosh. To my chagrin, I engage in that probably more than I should.
We're fine with it.
Yeah, good.
It's
Good.
it's just a part of my job. Like I work with middle schoolers and they have all, I will say they're about half a year behind all the lingo, because not only are they middle schoolers, but they're private school middle schoolers.
Yeah,
So they think they're cool, but they really have no gauge on what's actually happening. So
you'd say they're in like 6th, 7th grade?
Very good.
I
Very
actually
good.
told my joke. He said they're like 6, 7 years old, and I thought, no, you could actually make this relevant.
Yes, there you go.
See, I like the use of the 6-7 when it's not so on the nose and it's kind of up from the side like that. I appreciate that. But when people are just saying the numbers, I'm like, come on, these are perfectly good numbers that I would use to describe many things, but now I literally am not saying that anymore. I'm either going 7, 8, or 5, 6. I'm so conscious of it now.
Right.
Math class was really interesting for a couple months.
Yeah, I bet.
So
All right,
Yeah.
to get into it because my toddler.
yes, let's do it.
Yes.
Let's do it.
You two knew each other before I met you, Janelle, because you guys were in the same grade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what what was your life like coming into Fox? What tradition did you come from? Things like that.
Well, okay. First of all, I was thinking about it, and of the people that you mentioned that you've already interviewed, most of them, as far as I know, converted to whatever they converted together, or several of them did at least. But Parker and I did not do that. So he will have a different, interesting story of how he came, which I think is also relevant and cool for like most. It's very relatable, like for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
my situation was that I grew up Presbyterian. My family, my parents are still very devout Presbyterian, PCA. And I really appreciated everything that they gave me with that. I had a really good, like, for a Presbyterian understanding, had a really good Sunday school, church school education, as in like I was taught about things. I know a lot of people's complaints that they weren't taught any theology or doctrine or anything like that. That was not my situation. However, I was also going to a private Christian school. I got some mixed messages on the subject of predestination versus free will, from my school, and then from other like teachers and pastors of friends, and then from other hearing about other friends' churches, and then hearing about my own church, which was very devoutly Calvinist. So I remember like hearing about free will and just kind of assuming. I think the first time it clicked was with hearing about somebody talk about free will. And I was like, okay, cool, checks out. And then my dad was my Sunday school teacher, and I was probably like 8, and he started talking about like tulip and the Calvinism and predestination. And my 8-year-old self was like, hang on now, Dad. And we had a whole conversation about it, and I left. I felt so betrayed. I was like, that can't be right. I was like, you have to have gotten something wrong, Dad, because that just sounds wrong. So then I spent most of my teenage years a little bit disgruntled about that. Not disgruntled in the way of leaving the church. Like, my form of rebellion was just like listening to Radiohead while like on the quest for like what church to go to. And so I would go to friends' youth groups at like what you might call a mega church, which I have a different understanding of what a mega church really is in Texas, because it's very different in California than Texas. But I would go to friends' mega church youth groups, and I felt at the time really sensitive to manipulation, about specifically manipulation of emotions. And so every time I would go to one of their youth groups with the fog machines and the rock band, I would feel very manipulated. And that sounds really jaded, but I think I was onto something. And so I was like, this can't be it. Like, and the thing is, I'm a really emotional person. So I knew that my emotions would get me in the way if I let them lead everything, but they had led me astray so many times that I was like, this, my emotions can't be what rules this area of my life. Like, I don't want to be manipulated into feeling a certain way because of the fog machines. And if my faith is dictated by my emotions, I'm in trouble. So that was me as a teenager. Then I went to college, and I knew I was going to look for something different. I knew that I wanted something with tradition, something with history, something that was bigger than my feelings. But I was also am an artist, and my interest in art and my talent for art stems from an ability to like see the beauty in the world and acknowledge the importance of the physical world and the physical body. So I didn't resonate, as you might guess, with the iconoclastic feature of Presbyterianism also.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I want something old. I want something that has stood the test of time. It's not dictated by anyone's emotions, and something that is beautiful, something that like requires my whole body and soul to partake in it. So anyway, the backstory that's concurrent with this also is that my sister, who is 13 years my senior, converted to Orthodoxy when I was like 7, I think. And so I knew that it existed and I knew about it, but it was like off to the side and I didn't think about it for me. I didn't even know, like my parents and my sister were always arguing about this, but I didn't know what they were arguing about. I was just like, why are they like talking about whether or not to call him Paul or Saint Paul? um, things like that. So I didn't understand it. Then I went to college. I had not Orthodoxy on my radar at all. But I was like, ooh, Quakerism. That's like pretty old. Like it's not brand new. They do things old school. And I remember, Brent, I don't know if you remember this event, but there was an event in the big chapel at George Fox where it was like opening weekend at George Fox our freshman year, where they were talking about like picking a church, like how you can pick a church in the area. And they asked us to like sort of turn inward and like evaluate what we found most important um, for what we'd look for in a church. And they like said, okay, worship, community, I can't even think of what else you would what else you would look for, except she said, okay, how many of you care about the sacraments, like baptism, the Eucharist, stuff like that? She probably didn't even say Eucharist, she probably said communion. And I kid you not, it was me and Cade Wilcox and the entire room, and the entire auditorium of probably 500 kids, youths, said that sacraments were the thing we were most interested.
That sounds about right.
Isn't that crazy?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Anyway, so
I mean,
What year was this?
at that time, I would have been in the same boat as everyone else in that room. So
it's not even like Presbyterians are huge on sacraments. So I don't even know why I did that, but I was like, well, like worship's important, but it's not the most important. Community is important, but it's not the most important. And then when she said sacraments, I was like, yeah, that sounds like that's probably the most important.
I don't know. For me, it's like sometimes I hear a big word and I'm like, yes, that.
Yeah, that
yes. Mm-hmm.
What
Yep.
year would this have been?
2015.
Okay. All right.
That's when we started at Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I was like, I'll look into Quakerism. And then quickly, I didn't know much about Quakerism, quickly discovered they're not as big on sacraments as I apparently was. And I was like, case, but not that. And then we all had a professor named Dr. Favali, who I love deeply. I still text her sometimes. I love her a lot. And the other day I texted her because we were talking about the movie The Last of the Mohicans. And all I could think of was her saying, Daniel, make my day, Lewis. And I texted about that. And she was like, I'm glad my wisdom imparted to you. Anyway, I went to mass with her one time. I think Kyler and I went to mass with her. And I was like, this is really underwhelming. So there's a lot of concurrent stories in me arriving at Orthodoxy, but there's me knowing about it from my sister. There's me being disgruntled with Presbyterianism and trying out other few churches first. Oh, Brent, I think you went with me my first weekend there at Fox in freshman year. I was like, I'm going to try an Anglican church or an Episcopal church, whatever's in town, because I've heard good things. I think you were with me and one other girl went with us. I was like, do you guys want to try an Episcopal church? I think you were there.
I don't think so. I think surprisingly, like it boggles my brain, but surprisingly, I think we only went to church together once.
Where?
Ironically, which was at Kyler's, the Lutheran church.
Oh, you
I
mean
think.
Adrian's Lutheran Church?
Thank you, Adrian's Lutheran Church.
Okay, well, there's someone else who went to this Episcopal church with me. But the irony is, I was looking for any Episcopal or Anglican church in the town, and I went to the one that Google said was an Anglican church, and it was actually like the Anglican church had died out, and now a Baptist church was renting the Anglican church building, and so I ended up just going to a Baptist service, and I was like,
hey,
this isn't what I asked for. That was ironic. But anyway, that same Lutheran church is where I ended up going for 2 years because I was unimpressed with the Catholic Mass, unimpressed with no sacraments from the Quakers. And then I was like, well, this Lutheran church at least serves communion. It's high church. They have a pretty educated Sunday school hour. It's safe. It's with friends. I'll go there. So that was where I went for 2 years. That's the pause.
But you had a reverse bedsole
That's funny. Yeah.
because they were Anglican, Lutheran, Catholic. Well, I mean, I'm thinking reverse in terms of starting
Yeah.
with the Lutheran part.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's funny.
Where was the Lutheran church? Was it in Newburgh or was it somewhere else?
I think it was
It was up north. It was up north a bit. I believe, was it Tualatin, maybe?
It was either Tualatin or Lake Oswego.
Yeah, somewhere
There's
up there.
there's an LCMS church up in like Forest Grove.
That
Um,
that also
and
might that also might have
that's
been
like
it. It was
straight up the mountain.
a drive. Um,
It was
I don't know.
it was
Forest Grove
on,
would have been over the hill, so I don't think it was over the hill.
yeah.
Um,
It was
yeah.
oh yeah, Lutheran Missouri Synod. Okay. Yeah, it was the Missouri Synod. I see the acronym there.
LCMS.
It was a Missouri Synod church, but it was right on 99 as far as I can remember. But way up.
Yeah, it was definitely a drive. Which I was impressed that there was a contingent that kept going every day. But then, like,
The early
you guys are going out to the Orthodox church too, so
yeah.
that was a little bit of a trek too. But
Yeah. The perk of the Lutheran church, while I didn't know where I was going, was that I also didn't have to drive. Because
yeah,
the moons would,
carpool.
yeah. Which was nice. But we went to the early service because they had the traditional service at I think 8 a.m. and the not traditional service at like 10 a.m. or something like that. So we went to the early one so we could have the Lutheran hymns and whatnot. So anyway, then as I told Brent, I think before you got here, Brent, was that my family moved to Texas while I was at college. By the way, my husband is hanging out with the toddler so that they don't scream, but he's right in the other room. He can hear. But
Doing the Lord's work.
that's right, and we'll trade off so that he can tell his story too. But we, my family moved to Texas to be with my sister who had converted to Orthodoxy already. So when I would come home for Christmas breaks or summer breaks, there wasn't like a home church to go to the way that, my hometown church, which was kind of a blessing because I would have felt compelled to go to my childhood church if my family had still lived in California. But I said, why not go to church with Kelly and Jesse? Like that's another high church experience. My sister and her husband. And it's at least interesting. Like I found the Orthodox Church interesting at least. And we had started reading in the honors program. We had started reading all sorts of people, but St. Athanasius, St. John of Damascus, Augustine, St. John Chrysostom. We had read several early church fathers, and so I was like, well, these people like those guys, so let's see what they have to say. And then I remember going to their church, and I was like, this is pretty cool. And then really, I would say like what was a tipping point for me, which is the Lord's work, really, is that I like started becoming friends with people here, which is so interesting. Like it was really cool the way community really knit together with what I was searching for. Like I wasn't really searching for a community. I was searching for the true church, but community is what made me think twice about Orthodoxy, which I think is the case for a lot of people. So I made friends here. I loved it. And then what I kept asking, I was too scared to go to an Orthodox church by myself in Oregon. So I kept trying to find people who were Orthodox. And I asked a professor at George Fox, who was Orthodox, if she would take me with her. And she was going through her own personal journey of other political things, I would say. She was making a transition in her life. And so she was kind of reticent. And so I kind of got turned down. I was like, man, I just want to go to an Orthodox church. But again, I think it was all in God's timing. Because then a year or so later, I met a girl named Emily at Ashley Crabtree's house. And And I was like, oh, what church do you go to? And she was like, you probably don't know it. It's an Orthodox church. I was like, take me with you. So she took me with her. And then I had it all worked up in my head. I was like, I need to know exactly what to do before I go. I need to know how to behave. I need to like study and read and focus and like listen to all these podcasts before I can even go to a church, which was so silly. I don't know why I found her thinking that. But then I finally went with her over summer break one year in June of 2017 is when I would have gone for the first time. And I think the first day I went was Pentecost, which is sort of ironic. I didn't realize it was Pentecost at the time. But I went to church with her on Pentecost, sat through all of what's called kneeling vespers, which is a vesperal service right after liturgy. So an extra long service where you kneel the entire time. And I remember coming home and I was like, I don't even remember what my hangups were. I know I had hangups, doctrinal hangups, but I have no idea. It was the coolest thing. Like God totally just wiped from my memory all inhibitions or all reticence that I had with Orthodoxy. And I had been going to the Lutheran church every week, and I was planning to just go to this Orthodox church maybe once a month or something. But after that day, I was like, why was I afraid of that again? Like, why did I build up so much about that in my mind? I don't know. But I was like, I guess I go here now. And then I was baptized actually a year later on Pascha of 2018.
So yeah, the initial visit, that was sophomore year.
Yeah, it would have been this summer between sophomore and junior year.
Yeah. Okay. And then yeah, because I do remember, I think I distinctly remember uh was it Anderson House? Is that where
Mm-hmm.
or yeah, like being up in Anderson House, which ironically kind of felt like an upper room kind of experience where we're sitting up there and you're like, guys, I just did this thing and I don't even know how to like talk about it. And we were all just kind of like listening to you talk about like your experience at the Orthodox Church, which was your second time, right? Because you had said you had been with your sister out in Texas, had been out to a service. So, but yeah, it's just thinking back in my brain and remembering
Yeah.
that moment, and me, right, being like, this is wild. This is what is Janelle talking about?
I probably have Russian Orthodox like vinyl playing in the background too as I was
Oh, I'm sure
because that blasted
in,
up the house.
intermixed with some Radiohead here and
Yeah,
there.
Bob Dylan probably.
Oh yeah, it was great. Actually, yeah, Bob Dylan. Yep, distinct memories of that as well.
No.
Um,
You know,
so
just to clarify
yeah,
the record, I did actually go to an Orthodox church many times with my sister. Like I went for all of my nephew's baptisms that were there, but it was
cool.
just something about me deciding to go in Oregon on my own. And I can talk more about this experience of my day there if you want, but like something about me taking it on for myself.
Sure. Yeah, there's an ownership of it.
Yeah, was like it had an epiphany about, oh, I
Yeah.
really take this for myself, not just visit this cool foreign thing. I could actually be this. And it was
That
very
that's a good word for it. Epiphany, I think, is it's fitting. Yeah, sure. Okay. Um, so yeah, you had like all of the hang-ups wiped out. Um, and then like, were you able to really jump into the community fairly quickly? What
instantly.
was
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I would say, like I said, I to this day I can't remember what my hangups were. They were probably sort of run-of-the-mill things that most people have hangups with, like I can't pray to saints. That's like wrong,
Mhm.
isn't it? Or like, why all this talk about the Mother of God? And like, is that even an appropriate name for her? But I don't remember having a lot of like, it wasn't a strong hangups, whatever it was. I wasn't like vehemently opposed. I just was like a healthy skepticism because I wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing. But the things I was hungry for that were immediately sated were I walked in and it was like 7-year-old boys were hugging like 98-year-old yayas that they weren't related. They were just hugging them because it was the body of Christ. They walked in and they were just embracing. I just remember walking in and being like, why is everyone hugging each other so much? Like there's so much love. And then I loved the way that the entire body was engaged in the act of worship, which again I had already seen, but I was like, this is really good. Like this really engages your whole self. And that friend who took me, Emily, is now my god sister. Her parents are my godparents. Because you get godparents or sponsors when you become Orthodox that sort of oversee your journey into the church. And they brought me in just like a daughter. They were just like the organ family I needed. They just adopted me right in. And I think more than anything, what I was hungry for that I maybe wouldn't have even known to describe was I was hungry for a whole liturgical life. I was hungry for like a whole way of living and being. And I would have said, you know, I want art to be part of it. I want our bodies to matter. But what it really formulated into was I want a way to be the kind of woman I want to be, the kind of mother I want to be, the kind of Christian I want to be all the time. I want a way to embody all these things that feel important to me and live out the doctrine that I'm talking about. So seeing my godmother do exactly that was a huge step for me. And then meeting all of these people at church and seeing how much they loved one another and seeing the lives they lived, the homes they kept, the prayers they said, you know, the kindness they worked really hard to give, the humility that they had was like, again, a dawning on it, on me. Like, oh, I can don this on myself. I can take this on. So that was my sort of experience that I really experienced that over the first day, but especially the first couple weeks, and just delved right into the community. I mean, everyone was so welcoming, so good, so sweet to me, and my god family to this day we're very close. We talk all the time, but they just were so real, so human, and I kept encountering that. I was like, why everyone in Orthodoxy just feels very human. They feel like Orthodoxy is really accepting of people just being human while also striving to be holier and better every day. So that was my sort of entrance in, and by a month or two in, I was like how do I sign up? Where do I go? What do I do? I want this. So then I can talk about the the actual reception separately, but ultimately I was received the next year, and it's just been home ever since. Then of course we graduated in 2019. Brent and I did, and so I moved to Texas and came back to that church that I'd visited before, which is St. Seraphim Cathedral in Dallas, which is where I go now, and it's where I met my husband. It's where all my friends go, or a lot of my friends go. So it's funny that like the Orthodox Church in Oregon was sort of like my origin story, and I hold a lot of dear memories there, but I've been here 4 times as long as I was there. But
Yeah.
It's really go ahead, Grant. Go ahead.
I would say the same about my experience with Anglicanism now. I mean, I've lived so much longer on the post-college side of it now than I did during, but the seeds of the thing were so important, and I go back to those sometimes more often than I would realize because of the people I did it with, the embodied experience, the community. Like that just keeps coming back to that. Yeah, go for it, Brent.
Yeah, I appreciated the way that you kind of described the community as being um, feeling so real. Um, and I think maybe a term I'd put is like it has like a groundedness to it. There's a sense of like it uh the Orthodox Church seems to have a pretty clear understanding of what it means to be the body of Christ in the world here today, which
Hmm.
is interesting because I think many people don't have that image of the Orthodox Church. They see this like mystical, otherworldly nature to it. The smells, the bells, the like the closed off society kind of way of life,
Hmm.
countercultural. When
Protestant.
um, when for I think what is so wild is our current like the current culture we live in is so anti-body, is so anti like physical reality. Um, and yet because it is just our natural way of living and being, we think, oh, that is reality, which is kind of the deep sickness of the culture today. And so to see it lived out properly looks otherworldly.
Hmm.
It looks it it looks closed off. It looks too boxed in. And yet ironically, like when you see the world as it is, when you engage with the world as it is, when you engage with God and um and his incarnation as it is, I
Yeah.
think there's a right way of being. So yeah, it's great to hear that through your experience. Um, we've had a lot of conversations um with people. Sorry, my brain just got distracted by a bird. Classic.
Classic.
Um, so we've had a lot of conversations with people in which their conversion has been has been fairly intellectual, or has kind of been this journey of kind of like as you were pointing to early on in your experience where there was a lot of like doctrinal things you were kind of um, uh, m- dealing with in your mind kind of early on. Um, and yet it seems what you encountered was more of a relational experience that
Hmm.
I'm curious, looking at it from kind of a bigger, broader, top-down view of that experience for you. Like, was there a mental aspect to this for you?
Right.
Um, and I also found it interesting the way that you described it as like you walked in and or sorry, you walked out of that experience in Oregon and was like, I don't even remember some of these doctrinal things that I was concerned with. It kind of just melted away by the power of the Holy Spirit in many ways. Yeah, like could you speak to a little bit of this in more detail for yourself?
Yeah, you know how I would describe it is I think this is what God did for me. I was a Presbyterian and learned the Presbyterian doctrine pretty through and through. I was pretty versed in it, but the way, whether it was the way that it was taught to me or the way that I took it on, it was a very intellectual, cold way of viewing reality. I didn't use it to, I'm sure it can be used to treat people charitably, and to be a loving person, but I wasn't using it that way. And I remember as a teenager and a little kid just being very callous with it. Um, so I think I saw the doctrinal misalignments, you might say, that I heard my dad teaching me or the Sunday school teaching me. And I said, that's not right. And I went on a pursuit of truth, right? Trying to find what seemed true to me. And I was doing that through doctrinal things like, okay, I've read St. Athanasius. I like what he says on the incarnation. That's good. That book changed my life. I was like, that's good. I like that. That's got what feels true to me. Uh, so I was on this pursuit for truth, and I feel like God took that pursuit for intellectual truth, and shifted it for me, made me realize that the truth I was searching for was it is a relationship. So I was searching for dogmatic intellectual truth and arrived at relationship and realized that that really was the truth. So that sounds I don't know, maybe scripted or something, but it really was true. Like I had these doctrinal hangups, like I said, and I do think that, of course, my hangups with Presbyterianism or the things that I was searching for were accurate. It's not that they were baloney or anything, but I would have said, doctrinally or theologically, I think it's important that there be a presence for the body's engagement with worship. But relationally, when I arrived at the Orthodox Church, it became like, oh no, this is the truth is a relationship. The truth is a lived out life. And the I think the liturgy, the people's work, the good work, that being the origin of the word was what I was really after. Like I was after the people's work and the relationship with God. So it turned from a doctrinal truth to a relational truth. As turns out, what I was actually seeking, what I was actually looking for. Yeah. What were you just talking about a second ago before that? Oh, that you were talking about well, no, but the thing Brent was talking about a minute ago with the like high and low, people sometimes have this view of the church where it can feel a little bit like distant.
Otherworldly, kind
Yeah.
of mystical.
I think whenever I'm like taking somebody with me to an Orthodox church for the first time or explaining it to them, they get this image of high church equals starchy clothes and everyone is perfectly silent. Like you can't break any of the rules or everyone's gonna look at you. You could hear a pin drop, that kind of thing. And in reality, it's this incredibly embodied experience where there's kids, crying and smiling and laughing and hugging each other and bowing, prostrating. And there's old people, there's young people, there's everywhere in between. There's punk rockers, and there are the starchy dressed people, and we get all sorts of people, and it's just a very embodied human experience. But I remember, I think that was probably why I was nervous to go to an Orthodox church the first time. And I think God does this where he gives you sort of like the place and the people that you need in that time in order to comfortably encounter it. And for me, that was the Oregon church was very different than the cathedral I go to now. All grand and beautiful and sacramental, but the cathedral I go to now is very grand. It's beautiful. It's very ornate. It's big. It gives you the presence of God that's like, God is big and beautiful and like bigger than I can comprehend and very outside of myself in a way that it puts you in a good state of reverence, a good state of awe. My church in Oregon, and both of these things are true. My church in Oregon gave me the God is intimate, God is warm and comfortable and loving. And so it was this small wooden church, with just like picture frame icons all over the wall and people hugging each other. And it was like that church was like a warm hug. And both of those things are true about God and true about the capability of humanity. So per what you were saying about the incarnate understanding of the church and of God, like, yeah, God is both of those things. He's warm and comfortable, and he's also awe-inspiring and grand.
Well, and Janelle, I have been to an Orthodox church twice, only twice. The first time was the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And like if you're going to have a truly like out of body experience with the Orthodox Church. A
It's
midnight
yeah.
service in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre might just be that, where like you're just barely let in because you happen to have an Orthodox person with you with a signed letter, and like the lady who's like checking you in is like, I don't know, fine, come on in, kind of a thing, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
The fact that there's
Like,
even a lady checking you in, which there, but there's some Russian nun who probably saw some damage in the Cold War and ready to protect her church with her life. Yeah.
And then, interestingly enough, like I got the other side of that. So I was living in Wenatchee, Washington, Central Washington for 2 years, and we happened to have an Orthodox church there where a number of or a few of my students that I was teaching out there attended, and one of them had invited me to their to a service in which they had I forget what the name is for the regional head of
Bishop?
say it again.
Bishop?
No, it had a different name.
Metropolitan?
Yeah, the Metropolitan. So, like there was a Metropolitan who was coming into town, and invited me and a friend of mine to come and just be there. And so I went, and what a wildly different experience, right? Of kind of like you said, the hug
Mm-hmm.
kind of experience versus like the vaulted ceilings experience.
Mm-hmm.
As this was a like an that had been turned into a like had been gutted and turned into a sanct or into a I guess like they had an interesting name for it because they didn't really feel like they could call it um like an actual church because there was so much work to be done in many ways. But I forget what they were calling it at the time. But yeah, it was just what a wildly different experience, and yet the same
Yeah.
in some ways. So yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
think about is both of those experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that your first experience at an Orthodox church was the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is wild. But Brent's
Yeah.
real one, that's how y'all know, because I wanted to go to liturgy, which for the Orthodox at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, their slot is at midnight is when you can walk in, and then it's 5 hours of service, and starting with that, and so I took a couple daring friends with me. Why they were brave enough to come, I don't know, but I appreciated it, and Brent was one of them.
I got sick after that. Like it that late night did me in, but it was well worth it. It was well worth
The
it.
perk was we got the Church of the Holy Sepulchre to ourselves after liturgy.
Yes.
Whereas
We could walk around with like
crowded.
no one in there.
Yep. We were exploring that church, like every Melkite Armenian corner of that church with like delirious eyes. So deprived, but just
Because usually there's like hundreds of people in there, and you're
yeah.
shoving through crowds. So yeah, that was really special.
I went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre on a honors trip to Israel in 2019. I don't know if this was a separate study abroad thing for you guys, but
We didn't have those.
oh no, okay.
Anyway,
Juniors abroad, Jordan?
yeah. Well, yeah,
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Israel and
So
Jordan, yeah.
yeah, and I mean, the decor for one is just like insane, and the mosaics are everywhere. It's gorgeous. Um, but we were kind of go go go. We didn't have a whole lot of time there, and then I got lost in the old city, which is really easy to do.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm hearing here is something that a few other people have told us. Jack and Meg have told us this. Ethan and Kana told us this. The big appeal that seems to be the common thread for any of our friends who have joined Orthodoxy, Anglicanism, what have you, is this sense of the universal church. That was kind of a new concept to them. I mean, there's a sense, especially if you're in a very evangelical, missions-oriented church growing up, of like, everybody needs to hear the gospel type thing. That's important and that's one thing, but it's another thing to be like, wait, I'm on like the same calendar as like maybe millions of other people in the rest of the world that are doing the same things I'm doing, and we're reading
Yeah.
the same things, and we say the same things every Sunday. And that's a kind of uh way of connecting that is so appealing, even if you're never gonna, you know, be in all these places where this is also happening. But it totally, I think, helps the very modern, this is all there is mind that we might be implicitly imbibing, whether we know it or not, especially living in the United States, right? Um, and so I think that's been a big kind of light bulb thing for a lot
Yeah.
of people to talk to. Uh,
For me,
Jack and
for me, that was like an extreme security measure. Like that's not what necessarily drew me in, but once I got there, it was like, oh, I can trust this because it's what millions of other people have believed for thousands of years. And like it might not be popular in America yet, in terms of majority, but it is the church of many countries. It is the Christianity of many countries. It's like,
right,
oh, I might just not be aware of it, but actually, like when you're talking about Christianity in Russia, you're not talking about like Baptists with electric guitars most of the time. You're talking about so
uh, that would be interesting.
that was a security measure for me. It was like, oh, this is safe. Like this has stood the test of time, and not just by like majority consensus or something, but like this has stood the test of time, and it is the church of many people in many countries. So I felt safe to trust it.
You were still at Fox when Jack and Meg were coming around to Orthodoxy, right?
Yeah, they started dating when I was in Armstrong House my senior year, and I watched them fall in love down the street. And then they were asking. I think I was sitting on my porch one day in Armstrong House, which is on the other side of campus, and they from Anderson House, and they just approached me on my porch, and they were like, "You go to an Orthodox church, right?" They came with me, and they came like the next week, and they just kept coming from then on. And I remember
Wow.
Meg, like delving right in, and she was like helping out at coffee hour like the third week there or something. Like, what are you doing? Like she was all in.
Yeah, because they kind of cite you as certainly as an influence along the way there, since they didn't really know anybody else at Fox, at least in our grade or nearby, who was getting into this. I feel like there's a lot more people you might just statistically run into now, even at a place like Fox, where you've already kind of got like a posse that
Yeah.
goes to Divine Liturgy, and Brooks and Dana too. I
Mhm.
mean, I've been pretty instrumental in that on the faculty side.
Yeah, Brooks used to
So
drive to church every week. That was real
yeah.
sweet. We would take turns, but that was a good memory too.
Another thing that Jack in particular mentioned when we talked with he there's a notable absence in the canon for honors of like covering the schism. And I wonder if we did that and what that would do from a discussion point of view in that sense, because not to start a conversation about, representationalism and what you should and shouldn't have, but we covered the Reformation a lot in 290. And we read all of the confessional statements. We read the Council of Trent. We read the Heidelberg Catechism. We read the Augsburg Confession. We read the 39 Articles. But that's like 500 years
Yeah.
after the old thing. One of my favorite jokes is just or quips. If a Catholic is telling, me a Protestant, why don't you stop schisming and come home? I'm like, don't you already have beef with another one of your Christian
Yeah.
brothers in the East?
You
Don't you
guys
want
did
to take care of that first? I feel like you got that. I feel like
a
that's on your plate
good,
before you get to me. So it's all kind of in jest. But what do you kind of think about that in particular when it comes to the religious discussions in that context? Because I think it's funny that these things still happen regardless anyway, right? Because
you mean,
we're thinking people, we're deep. We're reading the patristics. We're reading the church fathers that predate the schism. So at least there's that. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, you can't blame them for wanting to frame it from the Protestant view of the church, which is, that like, yeah, those early church fathers are cool or whatever, but the church really started.
Well, we read the Quran. Like we
Right.
read a lot of stuff.
That's what I was
So
going to say is you can't blame them for, obviously they're not going to teach us all of the Islamic important prophetic writers or something. Like they don't want to give us all the inundate us with Islam, but obviously Eastern Christianity is, is more on the books of what they should be teaching. But I do think maybe they should, if we're trying to represent not just the Western canon, but also some of the East, like some later Eastern writers might have been good. Some like even just post schism, or like more. I'm trying to think of a good example. Closer to the schism, like and through the ecumenical councils, like Saint Maximus the Confessor, who I named my son after. Saint Martin, Pope of Rome, who we do have a couple saints before the schism that were popes. Other saints right around, like we did talk about iconoclasm, but we really didn't talk about shortly after iconoclasm in the church split. So I think just some, not, yeah, we don't need to do the whole representation thing. Like I'm not out here arguing that, but a different side of the coin talking about like a whole other half of the world's version of Christianity probably would have been helpful.
Yeah, it seemed like there were two kind of competing values at play, particularly when we were going through the honors program, of kind of trying to accurately grasp the big conversations of the West and like trying to engage with the texts of the big conversations of the West, but also kind of this multicultural value that was being kind of grasped at too, of like,
Yeah.
well, there's other conversations happening around the world. And interestingly enough, like the Eastern Church just kind of got forgotten because of that. Like
Yeah.
these two big arguments that kind of kept going throughout our time and the kind of the following 4 years, I'd say, and
Mhm.
kind of actually hit its like apex during your time, Grant, where there was just a lot of arguments over like what is the canon, like what is the canon of the great books, and like almost a coup for a little bit that took place over like what we should and should not read. um and you had the Eastern Church over here like, hey, we exist.
Yeah.
um do we
Right.
do you want to read anything of us?
Well, and not just we exist because like they need attention or something, because like
No.
they don't need the honors program to read them in order to be some of the most influential texts in history, but because I like from personal experience, I started latching on to Orthodoxy. I was following the thread that was set before me, starting with Saint Athanasius. I followed that thread and kept going to Orthodoxy. But what that meant is that the more I was going into Orthodoxy, the more the honors program was going into like Western modernity. And it was like just I couldn't have cared less. I was
Yeah,
just not
you talked a little bit about that, especially in your
yeah,
senior year. I remember having conversations with
yeah.
you as we were reading A Secular Age,
Mm-hmm.
if you remember.
Yeah.
And I remember you talking about how it's like this is just not the world I'm currently living in.
Yeah.
Like this just isn't it. Um but it is the world that surrounds us. But like, I just feel like I'm in a completely different context now,
Yeah.
which I will admit at the time I craved. And there was an aspect of like, I was actually jealous of some of the ways you were describing it in our seminars, going, Janelle is like simultaneously like, none of this really matters, to but also like, but I found it. And I'm sitting there going, "Ah, I haven't found it. I want it. No. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I would say there's been so much that's happened since then. But um
I
yeah,
think it
like
would have been
wild.
really important for people like me to realize that, like, yes, people, okay, so you're going through the canon chronologically, and if you're following enlightenment and the modernity, like, you are going to start asking some of these questions. But if you think that the whole world was asking those questions in that same way, you're sorely mistaken. And it did,
Hmm.
it did obviously touch the whole world eventually, but like the East, I remember running into this so often in junior and senior year. Like, the East doesn't have these problems. Like, the East is not asking about, like, they're not having issues of gender dysphoria, or like questioning whether or not our bodies even exist, or like whether or not we are our consciousness, and like still trying to put it under Christianity. Like, the East doesn't have that. We have like just a very different understanding of the nous and the body and the spirit. There's just like totally different conversations going on, and it would have been really healing for me in our time during reading those books to be like, yes, see, like, this has some of the answers. It has some of the answers by not having some of these problems to begin with, because once you sort of bastardize one truth, then it begets a whole bunch of other problems, and you separate it from its source, it just creates this snowball effect. So it would have been not just for like keeping up the quotas and like making sure we represent the East as much as the West, but it just would have answered probably a lot of people's problems, because in our senior year we had the disgruntled converts like me, like disgruntled with the West, who were converting to Eastern Orthodoxy. And then like we had as many people seeking high church of some kind as we did who were becoming atheist. Like, at the same time, we had almost nobody left who was not falling into either of those categories. Almost.
There's a very select few.
Yeah.
Like a few notable, like Gary being one of the few, like that was kind of in that really small camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very interesting that that was happening.
We had
Um,
so many people who came into Fox being Christians, though, that were now atheists because of, I don't want to say because of going through the Western canon, but they were asking these questions and they weren't being answered in a very hopeful way.
yeah, or the other side of it, of almost looking for the way out to some degree. Like, and when it was found, it was like, oh yeah, there it is,
Right. Yeah.
and grasping
Some
and
of them
running
were
with
already on
it.
before
Mm,
coming to Fox.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that is our experience with the honors program. It could have done with some more um, Eastern representation, not for the sake of representation. I even hate using that word, but like
Right. Yeah.
for the sake of letting people know what the other side of the coin is, what, like, that there are answers and there are remedies, and you don't, for someone who thinks that like the Enlightenment was a great ill on society, like, you don't have
Yeah.
to go that
Right.
that path. The Enlightenment and modernity is not the only way. But
Yeah, there's a forgotten story, right? There's a forgotten story in the West that um or something that we like to conveniently forget. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah,
Um just as
There
much as I think we like to conveniently forget the sorrows of the Reformation itself. So I mean, there's like multiple we've gone through multiple layers of kind of wanting to not think about things.
right, right. Ain't that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. Um not to, if there's anything to this kind of era to speak of for transitioning that will make sure that doesn't get unturned. But one thing that I kind of accidentally connected some time ago, Janelle, is you are at the same church as he got so many titles and I don't even know what the proper ones are, but Deacon Seraphim Richard
No.
Rohlin.
Yeah, forgot about that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I made that connection like a year or so ago, and I'm going to Symbolic World in Cleveland in
Right.
2 weeks.
That's so fun.
And I'm like 2 degrees away from half or more of the entire speaker lineup there. Two of whom I even like will DM with back and forth on Twitter. So it's been a fun like adjacent world because the
Yeah.
Orthodox people I've encountered with after college are in like the Pageau pipeline. So that's my outsider's impression of the community around Orthodoxy outside of the churches these people go to wherever they are. But you're not only at a like Roland is also there. So like
Yeah.
the this is the wrong way to say it, but the Eastern Orthodoxy industrial complex in the internet and with Symbolic World is tied to your actual parish.
Yeah.
It's to
What a
some
wild way to put it.
to
Eastern
some
Orthodox Industrial Complex.
yeah,
I
to
need
some
I
degree.
need that on a bumper sticker. Like be handing that around at Symbolic World.
Yeah.
Brent.
Make the t-shirts, make the t-shirts
I'm
now.
part of the Eastern Orthodox Industrial Complex.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Uh,
You know what's
And
funny
I
is Deacon
yeah,
Sarah was received like my first weekend of moving to Texas. Like I graduated, my family and I went on a trip to Europe, and when I came back, it was like right after Pentecost, I think, and he was received like pretty. It was one of the very first few weeks. So I've been Orthodox longer than him, not to, but
yeah.
I had no idea then like how big of a role he would play in the online Orthodox world, or like how good of friends we would end up being. But my husband and I are great friends with him.
Right.
Right, I have a great photo of he and I on Pascha a couple weeks ago. Me holding my 3-month-old baby and him holding his like 2-month-old puppy, both cradling them in our arms. Very cute.
Yeah, so what is that like with because the point we've been making here so much is like you have to be there. And and Jack and Meg are like, This is not really about the intellect so much. Like you just got to do the thing and you got to be there. And this is a lived out thing. At the same time, there's just the phenomenon of people getting to these places via the internet at the same time. Like,
Mhm.
so is
I'm
there
gonna
something that gets lost in the sauce there?
I'm gonna tap in my husband for this because he found Orthodoxy much more of the like the common story today is like kind of finding
yeah.
it. That's how he found it. And his first touching Orthodoxy IRL at all was with Jonathan Pageau present. That was like the first, probably the
Fun.
first Orthodox person you ever met, really, was, or
Oh
almost
wow.
was Jonathan Pageau and the priest over in Shreveport, Louisiana. So you can bring Eugene over here. But okay, well, he's gonna I'm gonna hold our baby off camera, but he can speak really well to finding Orthodoxy online. I won't, finding Orthodoxy online and then meeting Pageau IRL after listening to him and then getting to meet him again in a much more casual setting at the cathedral with Deacon Seraphim.
Yes. Very cool.
Hello.
Bro
Hey,
time. No, just kidding.
Parker, by the way, I'm just very excited to get to hear about you because honestly, it's wild that like I have not talked to Janelle in forever, but like just seeing how much joy she has around her family, like you're a big part of that. So I'm really excited to get to hear some of yourself.
Well, glory be to God. That's
Yeah,
blessing from above.
absolutely.
So I guess my background, I've lived in DFW my whole life, and when I was young, we were a Baptist family until about 5 years old. We went every week until I was about 5 years old, and then we just Christmas and Easter, twice a year we'd make it out. And so I remember as a child, I would pray to God. I'd lay in bed, going to sleep, and I'd just talk to Jesus, and that came naturally. But as soon as I hit puberty, it just everything went out the window. I was in the public school system. I was didn't have that sort of foundation or moral framework, any practices instilled, and I just had disdain for what seemed superstitious to me, no interest in it, and I became interested in science and knowledge, and went to University of Texas at Dallas, and studied biochemistry and molecular biology, and just tried to accrue as much knowledge as I could, and try to apply that to my life, and find meaning in that way. But I couldn't, because all of the scientific knowledge it's almost without meaning. It's decontextualized, and it's not meant. It's in the service of technology and quantitative accumulation of propositions. And so while I was at UT Dallas, I also became very, very interested in philosophy. And so I remember I was often a truant kid, either wouldn't show up to class or I'd show up late. But philosophy, I always went to. I always went to my philosophy classes, and I considered it my Sunday school at university, basically. And so I would try and find meaning in through studying the ancient Greeks or the German philosophers, continental philosophy mainly. And I got very taken up with this for about a decade, and read a lot of the ancient Greeks, um, a lot of Nietzsche and Heidegger, and some Hölderlin, and some others scattered in there. And so that's where I found a little bit of meaning. But I continued to study science, and I was in a molecular biology PhD program, and I was auditing some philosophy courses on the side just to keep up with it. But my life wasn't getting any better. I kept making more of a mess of my own life, trying to put together a way of living, a moral framework. I wanted to be a good person, but I didn't know how. And I was subject to the sins of the flesh. And I just became more and more unhappy in life, and lost. And so around 2018, Jordan Peterson blew up and became very, very popular. And so I started listening to him, and I listened to his biblical series lectures, and I was hooked. I listened to him every single day. I started to realize that, that Christianity isn't superstitious, that if I wasn't getting anything out of this millennia old tradition of wisdom and knowledge and practice, where all of the greatest figures in history have either been a part of it or studied it to one degree or another, and found deep meaning in it, that it wasn't, I was the one at fault there, that I was the one who was not engaging with it correctly. And so this would have been in June of 2018, I sort of did a Jordan Peterson thing of just trying to act as if God was true. And I prayed to a God I didn't know that if you're real, show yourself to me, help me, guide me out of this place in my life. And within 3 months, I was baptized in my childhood Baptist church, because around that same time, my grandmother was very ill in the hospital and didn't think she was going to live, but she recovered miraculously. And so she only lived 40 minutes away from where I was living at the time. I decided I wanted to spend more time with her, and Sundays were open on my schedule. So I decided to go to my childhood Baptist church with my grandmother every Sunday that summer, and then have lunch and spend the afternoon with her before going back home and resuming my scientific work during the week. And within 3 months later, I got baptized. And then once I committed to being a Christian, and the reason I got baptized was I was attending these low church services, and I was asking Jordan Peterson a question: why do people gather here every Sunday, every week, and spend an hour of their time with their families? They get ready for it. They come here, they sing, they listen to a sermon and pray, and then go home. And in that, by engaging with it meaningfully, intentionally, I felt Jesus call out to me that who I had been trying to be my entire life was a good, faithful Christian man, a follower of Christ, that everything was speaking to me that this is where I was being called. I was being called to be a follower of Jesus Christ. And once I got over the hang up of not needing to have already read the Bible completely and understand it totally before professing faith in Jesus Christ, I got baptized and started to try and change my life, tried to, by following Christ and his teachings. And so my YouTube algorithm then became not just Jordan Peterson, but Jonathan Pageau, Paul Vanderklay, John Vervaeke. And I listened to these gentlemen a lot. Every single day, I'd always get a shower and I'd put on one of their podcasts, and I'd be working or driving, a lot of driving at that time. And so always listening to somebody.
Do you know what the TLC is? Like the flotilla of the YouTube world?
This little corner, they call it.
Yeah.
Which is Paul Vanderklay's thing. But.
Right. I've heard it before. I'd forgotten.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that we had this much overlap. This is exciting.
Yeah. So that's where kind of we ended up getting sucked into the podcast world.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, it's great. It helped me out of a lot. And so, once I was baptized, I sort of realized Jordan Peterson's great, but he doesn't take that next step. I want to take the next step. I want to go further. And so that's why I listened to a lot of Paul during those next couple months, and Pageau as well, just to really get at the meat of the lived Christian life, of the marriage of the visible and the invisible. And so I 9 months after I was baptized, I was listening to a Jonathan Pageau podcast, and at the very end he says, this is around the time his house flooded, and he says, well, all this is going on, but I'm going to be giving a talk in Shreveport, Louisiana next weekend. So those of you who are near, come on out and say hello, and so on and so forth. And I thought, well, Shreveport's on all the highway signs around Dallas, so I can't be that far. So I sent out an email to Father Jason at the Holy Nativity of Our Lord OCA Church in Shreveport, and he was the one hosting Jonathan, and he said, come on down and come on out and meet us and hang out with us. And so I did. I just took those few days off, dropped everything, went, and that was my first experience in an Orthodox church was meeting Jonathan Pageau. It was a Vespers service, and I was standing right next to him, and I didn't know what was going on. the bells and whistles and smoke, and they're all chanting, and I couldn't hear what they were saying. At one point, there was a litany. Let us pray for. They're praying for everyone, and what is it? I forget. I was. There's one part of the litany where I thought they were praying for the salvation of Catholics, and I thought, wow, that's so magnanimous of them. I just thought, how beautiful. I want to be a part of this group that prays for even those they disagree with. That's not what was being said, but that's what I heard. And so I didn't really comprehend it, but I immediately felt at home. And it was such a profound experience because I professed faith in Christ and when I was in the Baptist church, but I knew that wasn't where I was going to stay. It has the Bible, it has some nice hymns, and it has well-meaning people, but I didn't know how to pray myself. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any guidance on how to be a Christian. So I made up for that by studying the Bible and reading the text and trying to conform my life to that. But it's very hard to renew your mind and body without an ecology of practices. And the Orthodox Church offers that. But much like Janelle, before even that realization came to me, I visited this church and I met these people, and my biggest impression was that the light of Christ was shining from them. They had such joy and faith, and they were all beautiful people from all different walks of life. There were children and elderly, crippled people and healthy people, foreigners and native Louisianans, and they were just all kinds of people, all walks of life. Everybody was welcomed, and Father Jason had such love for every single one of them. And he had just met me that day, but he gave me the key to the church and said, there's a bed upstairs. You're welcome to stay the night, so you don't have to drive home late at night. And just opened his just gave me every hospitality. And I was so overwhelmed by the generosity and the love and the liturgy, and that I knew I was home. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was to come of it. But I knew I was home. And so after that, Father Jason directed me to go to St. Seraphim, to visit St. Seraphim and speak with the then Archimandrite Gerassim. He's now our bishop. And again, I was just welcomed personally with open arms. And because I reached out to Bishop Gerassim through his cell phone, and he just said, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can show you around the church. Come here or Saturday morning. Nobody will be here." And he spent 2 hours just talking with me and hearing my story and telling me about the church and showing me around and describing the history of the church, the iconography on the walls. It was a very, it was such a blessing that I just became enthralled. And so you would think that I'd start going to that church every single day at that point, but I had some other issues in my life to work through, and that held me back. And so it wasn't until this would have been June of 2018. And then in September, October is when so about 3 months later, I dove headfirst and started going every week to the different churches around DFW, becoming a part of it, trying to understand what was going on. And I was head over heels for joining the church, for becoming an Orthodox Christian and learning how to worship Jesus Christ in this tradition. And then COVID hit and the world shut down. And so, mind you, I gave up. I dropped out of my PhD program at this time. I couldn't reconcile molecular biology and the academic political landscape in 2019 with a complete transformation of my life and mind and heart. And I needed a year off. So I took a year sabbatical in December of 2019, and then COVID hit, and then the churches closed. And I had just recently moved back in with my parents as a 27-year-old man, and everything just fell and collapsed down on me, and I didn't know. I was lost again. But as we were, what that did was it really showed me, because I didn't feel like I made the wrong decision leaving my previous lifestyle behind for Christ or his church, but I realized how much I needed Christ, and I needed the sacraments provided by the church, or this ecology of practices to make the transformation in my life. And so as the lockdown restrictions eased, I took every opportunity to go to church as many times a week as I could, and I wound up, as they eased enough, I wound up attending 5 days a week. Go to Reader's Vespers, go to Wednesday, Friday Vespers, go to Vigil on Saturday, go to Liturgy on Sunday. If there was a liturgy some other day of the week, I would find a way to make it, and just threw myself wholeheartedly into the liturgical life of the church. And thank God, because it's, Jesus saved my life through his servants and through his church. And I'm a different man than I was 5-6 years ago, entirely. And I have a beautiful wife and a beautiful family, and it's such a blessing, and many great friends, a wonderful community that really can't be harped on enough. The kind of just the life in the body of Christ, that how many times we've been helped by our friends and family in the church, and how often we're able to hopefully give some of that back to them as well. And it's a life of love that I never knew existed before encountering it personally. And so that's the general overview. I don't know if you have any specific questions, but I finally feel at home. And so I guess your entire podcast is around this sort of the intellectual move into the church. I think it's worth noting that once I was in the liturgy and in the services for several days a week, and I was practicing this life of attending liturgical services, prayer as I'm able, and repentance through confession, celebration of the Eucharist. I've lost a lot of the need to keep up with the intellectual. Some people just retain that interest, but I'm content, happy. Like I finally, all of the questions that I had when I was studying philosophy, when I was studying science and studying the Bible as a Baptist, and just trying to find meaning for suffering in my life. I think I don't feel lost anymore, and so I don't feel that burning thirst to consume more and more and more content. I go to church, I pray, I love my family the best I'm able, and do my work as faithfully as I can, and it's, glory be to God for all things.
Yeah, there's I think you pointed into it well, of there's that feeling of like when you actually have something to do, when you actually have a thing to live out. Like I know for myself, like becoming a husband and a father, all of a sudden, all of these things that seemed so like central to my to being okay, that like I had to like intellectually explore in order to be okay, they all just kind of melted away because I was like, oh yeah, I know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I know my role in the world, and I know the dragons I need to slay, as Jordan Peterson might put it. Um, but yeah, like it's so interesting to hear your story, because I think it is the story that a lot of people, or that like you hear as happening in these kind of intellectual worlds. Like Jonathan Pageau talks about it, of like a lot of these people who are following him that end up doing this or end up going through this. And well, here you are as someone who kind of went intellectually searching and found a home in the Orthodox Church, and also found a life for yourself with uh, with a wife and kids. So very, very, very cool. Grant, you have some questions?
Yeah, I mean that's just great to hear, by the way, Parker. Like that's wonderful. Um, Everything you talked about. Um, the I think you're one of the first Orthodox folks I've talked to who came to this is how you came to like Christianity in general. I mean, you said you went to the Baptist church, but that was kind of short-lived before this change. Everybody else I know, the thing that is kind of the hallmark of their story is I was raised Protestant, evangelical, non-denominational, Baptist, Presbyterian, and then I realized that there's this whole expansive Christian world I didn't really know existed. And they kind of have this like they kind of get red pilled into it a little bit. It's like this existed my whole life and no one in my church told me about it. What else are they hiding from me? It kind of creates this, are they just ill-informed at best, or are they arrogant and disobedient at worst? And then I think a lot of the phenomenon I saw a lot with my friends in college was if that kind of moment hit them, there was like one of two ways they went. and this kind of mirrors, I think, more of the experience that Brent and Janelle were talking about with their particular graduating class. You you go full in on something, you double down, you're like, I love Orthodoxy, I'm going to become Catholic. Or you kind of you start to perhaps devolve into some kind of what we would call deconstruction or what have you. And that was combined by a lot of other factors that had nothing to do with, you know, what the church was saying about itself or whatever. It was a lot more personal factors, not unlike personal factors that I've been plagued with in my own life. And sounds like, same with you. And yet, why are we here and not, you know, wearing weird colors on our bodies and shouting in the streets, like why are we not doing that? Why? I think to a certain kind of person, that kind of religion is just automatically dissatisfying. It's kind of a turnoff. I would also imagine that there's a kind of cultural milieu in Texas that has more to say against that kind of thing than, say, I don't know, Portland. Those are very different worlds. But how how is I guess, the discipleship that you've experienced and you've received on the other side of this? Um, how has that helped you be grounded now? And how has your kind of family reacted to this? Because I'm assuming you not, I mean, you said you went to Christmas and Easter only type deal growing up. How have the lives of those around you been impacted because of your faith now and the relationships there? Because that's got to be interesting.
Yeah, no, certainly. Well, I think it depends on which generation of my family you're asking about. I think the my grandmother and my parents are very supportive of it. They were very, very supportive when I was going to our childhood church with my grandmother again. It was one of my favorite memories in my entire life is when I was telling my grandmother that, hey, next week I'm going to be baptized, and this 95-year-old woman, well, I guess she was 90 years old at the time, and she um, had this expression of joy, just really, and it was an exuberance and a light in her eyes, and she was so thankful, as if probably her prayers, her lifelong prayers, had been answered, and it was so humbling to me, and so she was very happy, and then my parents were very happy. But when I became Orthodox, they don't really understand it entirely, but they just made sure that you still love Jesus, right? You're following Jesus, and I reassured them that this is where that, yes, of course, absolutely, and that's the entire reason behind going to the Orthodox Church, and so they've been very supportive. My brothers and sisters have been um, very interested in it. They also rejoice that I converted out of agnosticism, out of my previous life, and became Christian. But they're very keen. They're always texting Janelle and I about, okay, so what about this? So what is Orthodoxy? How do they handle funerals, or what's this like? What do y'all think about
They also saw our wedding.
this? Yeah, and so they have a lot of questions for us, and we love talking to them about it. And I think at some point they've expressed interest. My oldest brother and sister expressed interest in going and attending, but they have their own families and life and community where they live in Austin and Brenham, and so it makes it hard to just make the leap on their own, but God willing, one day they may also become Orthodox Christians, and so that's very very cool to see and observe on my end as well, and because they're having that experience, that classic experience of being low church Protestants their entire lives, but having some unanswered questions or looking into church history and seeing, oh, well, my Bible has this many books, but the Catholic Bible has extra books. What happened to the extra books? The Catholic and Orthodox have more scriptures than we do. Where did those go? Or what's the Septuagint text of the Old Testament versus the Masoretic text, and are there differences, and why are they there? Why do y'all have a liturgy, or why do you venerate the icons? All of these classic questions, and so they're on their own journey, on their own timetable. But that's been neat to see. For me, I didn't have to work through any of those hangups, because I was not a believer, and then I believed in Jesus Christ, and I just needed to know where he wanted me. And when it became very apparent quite quickly that it was the Orthodox Church, and so all of the red pills came after the fact. But it's like, oh, okay, so some people, they believe this because of, or history just unfolded in these particular ways, but nothing's shaken my understanding of the Orthodox Church or its place, and I haven't had to work through any sort of historical trauma, I guess. And then as far as the discipleship, that's been great, because so in terms of just knowledge and the sort of mystical side or the historical side, there's a wealth of podcasts to listen to, and speakers, and we can, and you can just talk with Deacon Seraphim Rohlin, and he'll yap your ear off in such a loving and knowledgeable way. But in terms of the practices, the life of the church, I mean, once I was received into the church, I had been able to go to confession every, at least once a month. There were periods of time where I'd have to go every single week, just because I'd do some stupid thing and I'd have to get it off my chest. And then we have our father confessors or spiritual fathers who have saying, well, yeah, you shouldn't do that, stupid. So do this instead, and here's this practice, and try this, or, well, not the women, they don't. Sorry. But it's been great. So I have to reconcile and integrate my heart and mind and soul into my body, and actually go to church and worship and do the prostrations and matanyas and sing along, pray along, go home, and then carry on that same spirit of prayer and practice. And then when I fall, I have to pick myself back up, and I have to admit to error. And so by doing this, it's a very, I think this form of discipleship, of having a spiritual father, a spiritual confessor, is just such a natural and organic way of being discipled into the life of Christ, because we bring forth the darkest parts of ourselves, and we all have those hidden corners and those worms under the rocks in our heart, that when we shine light into those spaces, then that allows Christ to act in the fullness of our souls and our lives and existence. And so it takes time, but it's uncomfortable at times, but it's been it's provided everything that I've needed. And so I'm able to continue to, God willing, work out my salvation in fear and trembling. And yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, thank you. That's we have to know, though, the part we have not talked about yet. How did you and Janelle meet?
Well, we met at church. I don't know if she shared any earlier photos of me, but I was what is it? Had the countenance of an ortho bro, and I went unshaven. I joined the church and I went unshaven for over a year, and I had long hair. I didn't cut my hair. Scrappy. I was wearing. Hey, buddy, it's okay. I was wearing same, just sort of black shirts, black pants, black denim jacket, all black. And I was a morose kind of guy for a while, and
I like to consider like the Ortho Bros are the goth of the high church, or like they're the what's the term, emo. They're the emo crew of the high church society.
Yeah, that's right. And then I was hanging around all of the former Satanist guys that were in the church, and so they, by just like their nature, are also just in all black, gothic, sort of morose people. And we had a lot of we had chemistry from the get-go, but I was trying to I wanted to focus on spiritual transformation. And so in my I made a promise to myself and to Christ when I joined the church that I just would not seek any kind of relationship for a minimum of a year. And so just so that I could have that space and work through some of my previous failings and issues. And so we had chemistry. We'd hang out some, but she'd be interested, and then I'd say, no, I'm not ready. I'm not available to date. And so I did initiate all those conversations. Right. It was right. It was very clear that we liked each other, but I wasn't in a place to continue or to start anything at that point. And so this happened a couple of times over the first year and a half that I was in the church. And then I don't know what changed, honestly, but I
got fed up with you and tried to move on.
Well, no, in my well, that's true. She did get fed up and she moved on. And then around that same time, I figured something changed in me, and I just thought, okay, I'm ready to move on to the next stage of my life and start a relationship. And then I figured, because I had already put her through the ringer of flirting with her, but not being able to take it any further, reciprocate. And I was kind of being a jerk in that way. But I figured she was done with me. She had to have been. Let her on for too long. And then an opportunity arose, and it was clear I still had my hooks in her. And so I asked her out on a date, and she said yes, thank God. And I took her out on a date, and she goes, and so as we're driving to the restaurant, she says, okay, so you have to explain to me what's been going on. Why has this not happened sooner? And so she gave me the third degree.
I literally said, all right, what's your opening statement here?
Yeah, I was in a court of law, basically.
You said my opening statement.
And so I explained myself, and then we sat down for dinner, and I said, look, I'm sorry I wasn't available earlier, but I am now, and I think we should get married. First date.
Woo!
Yeah. And so she was like, okay. And then we just kept talking, and we went from friends to lovers and
Married 9 months later.
courting. We were courting, and we, with the blessing of our spiritual fathers and the blessing of the church, and they, was it 9 months later that I proposed?
Yeah, 5 months later we were engaged.
5 months later we were engaged.
Or no, 4 months later we were engaged.
4 months later, it just keeps getting better. Yeah, I had to convince her family that I was worth marrying, or worth marrying their daughter off to, and so that was fun. But we basically speed ran the whole thing, and yeah, so October to February, we started dating in October, the beginning of October 2022, and February of 2023, I put a ring on her finger, and we got married in July of that year, and then in August, we found out we were having children. Not one, but two.
Yeah. Yeah, what a wild ride.
Absolutely. It's
A key detail here too that he told me on our first date was that, like, he said, well, I was looking around and realized, because I had this keen feeling that, like, we would just made really, really good friends. And I had been told by all of the priests that I had talked to about marriage, said you need to make sure you have a good friendship at the base of your marriage. And I was like, I just feel like we're just really good friends. I just feel like we have a really good friendship. And then I felt that way. But then on our first date, he was like, I was looking around for, like, my friends and, like, thinking about all the people I wanted to talk to about, such and such. And then I realized, like, oh, she's kind of my best friend. And so when he said that, I was like, sick. We're set.
rocking and rolling.
But I say that because we were friends for, we met in 2019 and then we didn't start dating until 2022. So a lot of people maybe disagree with the whole, like, you should be friends first thing. But I think with some boundaries in mind and with the right intent, being friends first is actually the way to do it.
Huge advocate for that, because I don't know if you're aware, but marriage is not just about attraction. There's a lot of practical things that also go on, and there's a lot of time when you're not on dates. So a lot of hardships to go through, and so if you can do it with your best friend, somebody that you enjoy spending time with, it's makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, there's been a lot of so my experience was it was a COVID relationship. It was like I met my wife online. We had a couple dates in person before everything shut down, and then, like, wild season of kind of every other part of life being closed off. So, well, you and I are just getting to know each other. And I guess we're going to be really, like, we're going to be spending a lot of time together because no one else wants to spend time with me. So here we are. And yeah, like, I think there's something true to that. We didn't have that kind of more long-term friendship thing, but in many ways, I think I can similarly relate to that feeling of, like, being at a place in life where when you actually said hey, let's do this dating thing, it's not a kind of find out experience. It's no, I'm asking you out on a date because I think you would be someone that I want to be married to.
Yeah, I want to
right?
spend
Like,
the rest of my life.
I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Right. And so, like, for me, it's like I'm on this date with you because like I'm looking to spend the rest of my life with someone. I'm not here for a relational experience where I'm going to be like like wanting romance. It's like, no, this is I want a companion for the rest of my life, and I think you might be it. So, or at least it sounds like in your circumstance, you're like, no, you are it. So
Yeah,
what are we gonna do about that?
let's take it. Let's
Yeah.
chop chop. We got things to do.
Yeah. On that note, my other half is um with our daughter and would very much, I think, appreciate me being present. Um,
This other half.
so
Yeah, she also feels the same.
thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time and allowing us to hear your guys' story. It's really wonderful.
Yeah,
it's our pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us on.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
good to
you.
catch up and to talk about this. That it's still on y'all's radars.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep us updated.
I'm gonna let you say do the send off, but it was a pleasure meeting you both, and God bless
You as well, Parker.
Thank you, Parker.
Anyway, yeah, it's good to talk to y'all. The more you're welcome to like message us about things too, or ask questions or anything or maybe we revisit this conversation later. But I wish we were all in the same city. We could just all have dinner. We'd love to have everyone over.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that how it works? We're just all spread out now. Ah! It feels like a family that's like all spread out, and
yeah, especially
here we are.
Family really is all spread out too. It's a constant problem of the age. Really stinks.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your sister, Brent?
Washington, Olympia.
Okay.
So it's like not too far away. With her first child. So
yay!
Yeah. And we are expecting our second.
Yes, Grant said that. I think I got wind of that some other way too, maybe in the
probably
East.
through the grapevine of some sort.
Yeah. Do you know what you're having?
This time around we were kind of just like, if you know,
yeah.
Send it out. Like we don't care. Just let the world know. So
help people. Wait, but do you
it's
know
interesting how that changes.
Boy, girl?
Boy.
Yay! Wait, is your boy or a girl?
So we have our first is a girl. Now we have a boy coming. So it's fun. It's good.
You're in
Anastasia is her name. If I haven't, our daughter's name.
Name. Good pick. She's a great saint.
Yes, and she was born on Good Friday.
Oh, wow.
And so we were like, we had a hard time trying to figure out what to name her, and she actually went nameless for 2 weeks. We felt really bad. And eventually we were like, okay, we need to figure this out. And I think it was just the Lord kind of aligning things correctly, that like we realized, wait, like with Christ's death comes new life.
Yeah.
Resurrection seems like a very fitting name for this girl. So yeah.
Wow. Glory to God.
It's good. It's good.
What question should I ask Deacon Rohlin at Symbolic World and like surprise him with? Because he doesn't know who I am, but if I'm like, hey, how was your game with Parker last week? He'll be like, what? How do you know? Or I don't know, something like that.
No, you should tell him that if he wears a half up bun, you should tell him he looks like Uhtred, son of Uhtred from The Last Kingdom. Have you guys seen that show? The Last Kingdom. It's a good show.
Oh, no, I don't think I have. Yeah.
It's about the foundation of England, like with King Alfred and the Saxons and the Danes. Anyway, he likes that show but he's a big early England nerd, in case you guys didn't know that. But
Oh yeah.
but he takes issue with that show because Uhtred carries his sword on his back. And to have a long sword that you carry on your back, I guess it's just terribly historically inaccurate. Because you can't actually like pull it from its sheath easily at all. So that would be one thing you should say. You kind of look like Uhtred, and he would just be like, "Who have you been talking to?" I told him he looked like Uhtred last week, and he said, "I look like Qui-Gon Jinn. Thank you very much." So that would be to strike a nerve for sure.
Nice. Okay.
All of
Pull
my
that-
children are crying presently. So
Okay.
if I think of a better way to catch Deacon Seraphim off guard, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
But you're gonna have so much fun. That'll be so great talking to all those
Great.
people. They would
Thank
all,
you.
of course, know us by name. Even Jonathan Pageau, we helped him pack up a bunch of book orders at the church when I was like 32 weeks pregnant with the twins. I was so pregnant, and we were there till like 2 a.m. packaging up these book orders.
Oh my
So
gosh.
he said,
Which talk about a
Yes.
like wild experience for
Yeah.
him. Uh,
yeah, it was kind of a wild, otherworldly experience for all of us. But he
mm.
said he would never forget us as really good. So we can hold him.
Well, Janelle, thank you so much.
Yeah.
This has
Thank
been a
you.
blessing.
Yeah, thank you guys. This is fun. This is fun to talk about. But
Yeah.
I hope that
Yeah.
I hope it helps in y'all's journey and in anyone else's.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is
Thank
good.
you.
Au revoir.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, you too. Hey, Christ is risen. We still say
Christ
that.
is risen indeed.
Yes. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Right, bye.
Bye.